Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, we will present about learning English with an SLA-based approach. But before we start the material, allow me to introduce myself and my friends. First, we have Chavia, the second is me, Marini, and the last is Rizky. So without any further ado, let's get started. English is a global language that connects people from different culture, backgrounds, and regions. Learning English as a second for foreign language can open up many opportunities for personal, academic, and professional growth. However, learning English is not an easy task. It requires motivation, dedication, and effective strategy to overcome the challenge of linguistic, cognitive, and social-cultural difference. Second language acquisition is the process of learning a new language after acquiring a first language. It is a sample of linguistics that studies how people learn language other than their native one and what factor influence their success. SLA is important for foreign language teacher because it can help them understand the challenge and needs of their students and to design effective and engaging instruction that suits their level and goals. Some of the reason why every foreign language teacher need to know about SLA. SLA can help teacher identify the stage of language development that their studies go through and adjust their expectation and feedback accordingly. For example, some common stakes of SLA are the silent period, the formulaic speech stage, the cultural development stage, and the fluency stage. Knowing the stage can help teachers provide appropriate input, scaffolding, and correction for their students. SLA can help teachers understand the factors that influence language learning, such as motivation, attitude, aptitude, age, learning style, learning strategies, and social context. This factor can affect the learner's performance, progress, and outcomes in different ways. Teacher can use this knowledge to create a positive and sport learning environment and to tailor their instruction to meet the diverse needs and preferences of their students. SLA can help teachers evaluate the effectiveness of their teaching methods and materials and make informed decisions about curriculum design and assessment. Teachers can use SLA research and theories to select and adapt the most suitable approaches and techniques for teaching different language skills such as grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Teachers can also use SLA principles and findings to design and implement pilot and relatable assessments that measure the student's language proficiency and progress. Second language learning as well as first language learner can be based on various theories. When explaining second language learning, one has considered the context of learning another language. Also, some authors discuss not only between first and second language learning, but also investigate the third language learning. Second language learning is understood as an acquisition of any other language than the mother tongue, no matter if this learned as a second, third, or other language. Several theories have tried to explain second language learner, as the following section can only very brief introduce the main theoretical approaches. Behaviorism. In the past, behaviorism played an important role. People thought the language learner was a habit formation and thought second language learners just had to memorize and imitate the patterns from the input. The underlying idea of behaviorism was that imitating language input and reproducing structures and lexical items for which the learners had received positive feedback from their interlocutors was beneficial for the acquisition of target language. Such behaviorists consider imitation and practice guideline by positive pre-increments. For the driving process for language acquisition, insight perspective, another theoretical approach discusses the insight perspective. The underlying theory is called universal grammar. The logical problem obviously occurs both in the first as well as in second language learning. Researchers who use this approach to explain second language learning are mainly focused on the learner's complete sentences. Explain second language learning in mainly focus on the learner's competence. This table is current models in a nutshell. It has been challenged for a number of reasons, mainly because his hypotheses are not falsifiable and thus neither testable or variable. Yet, his work has been very influential and sparked a lot of research. Output hypothesis. In answer to current input hypothesis, someone developed the output hypothesis, which basically claims that second language learners opportunities for language use because language production forces a learner to move from comprehension to science use of language. Interaction hypothesis. This hypothesis attempts to account to learner through the learner's exposure to language, production of language, and feedback on the production. Interactional modification. By making input comprehensible, language acquisition can be promoted. In addition to input hypothesis, input can also be made more comprehensible through interaction modification. Through negotiation on meaning and the feedback the learner receives from her or his interlocutors. The general idea of the interaction hypothesis is as follows. Interactional modification makes input comprehensible. Processability theory. This theory is designed to explain second language learning as a stage development where learners acquire incremental processing strategy. Teaching can only support second language learning if the learner's state of interlanguage development has research and stage where learner can comprehend and produce the very well. In other words, learners need to be development ready to be able to process the language structure and by doing so, converting input into intake. Interlanguage contains features from the first language of the learner as well as features from the target language. It describes the stage of language that has not yet been fully developed by a learner. Interlanguage refers to the individual mentally grammar of each language learner of a second language who has not yet fully acquired the target language but only approximate to it. Interlanguage contains features of the target language but also innovations by the learner that are neither target, like not totally in the line with the learner's first language. Target is the individual mental grammar repetition of a learner. It is yet a rule governed and thus predictable. In contrast to interlanguage development in the first language, however, this is no granted the second language learners will actually reach target like command of the second language. Interlanguage posits that learners are involved in constitutional process of hypothesis formulation and testing. A new element of L2 are acquired language is tested and assets. L2 items are also constructed through analogy with item and rules already known. This may be carried out subconsciously along with processing of feedback and how this might or might not change the interlanguage as the learner move along the continuum. The change might bring the interlanguage closer to the desired L2 from but not necessary predictable path. The concept of interlanguage draws from the thought that psychological structure within the learner's mind constrain the development of the target language. This development from the initial state to target like use is far from being random but follows the predictable path. In the defined in and pure manner by a learners are current level processing. On the illustration, it shows the mental representation of interlanguage structure in the mind of the learner and also clearly point out that any correction of not target like interlanguage structure is fine if the learner is not yet developmentally ready to process the target like structure. As the little boy in the cartoon is not yet developmentally ready to mother correction, he misinterprets this correction as a systematic one rather than a more political correction. Moreover, the illustration demonstrates that interlanguage structures are rule governed over generalization. Overgeneralization refers to the phenomenon that language learners who have acquiring the creating grammar rules it by applying it to all contexts, even where there are expectations from that rule. One example is overgeneralization of the past it more happen also for irregular verb. Interlanguage is a curricular feature of any language acquisition, be it first or second language acquisition, be it acquisition in natural or instructed setting. Processability theory is a physical linguistic theory of SLA designed to explain the phenomenon of state development in SLA. It explores what goes on in the mind of a second language learner during the acquisition process. Also, PT in this original version from 1998 was designed to address the so-called development problem. PT was developed further to also account for the logical problem. Yet, to keep things simpler, the following section is limited to the explanation of development problem. This table provides a short overview of the developmental stage found for English as foreign or second language. Stage 1 contains of a single words of formulaic speech, which at this stage are not yet analyzed by the learner. The main feature of stage 2 is the SVO pattern, which the learner can use for the statement, question, and negotiation. At this stage, both target as well as non-target like structures can be produced. Stage 3 develop the SVO pattern from stage 2 further and extend it to the fronting of ether and adverb. An auxiliary or a question mark at stake for the learner acquires how to invert sentence structures in order to ask question. Her, she or he can either produce questions start with the copula or question that start with question word invert on the copula. The main feature of stage 5 is that the learner acquiring to put the auxiliary in second position of the question. Additionally, only at stage 5 the learner acquires the third person. This is explain why so many learners in the EFL classroom struggle with the structure so long. At stage 6, the learner acquiring increased question. Psycholinguistic basis. This stage of acquisition for L2 English from the psycholinguistic basis of L2 English development and outline the acquisition of procedural skill and the sequence they become available for the learner. These sequences cannot be outread to instruction. Although every L2 English learner has to go through the sequence. Processability theory does not make any claims in terms of how fast a learner may go through these questions, as will be explained below. Teaching that considers the current state of learners' interlanguage development might be beneficial for a acquisition process.
Psycholinguistic research can promote successful language learning in structured settings if teachers are aware of its findings and calibrate their language classroom accordingly. The teachability hypothesis was introduced by Pieneman in 1984, which states that no stage can be skipped or altered by instruction. It implies that foreign language teaching is most successful when its curriculum follows the stage of processing hierarchy. TH distinguishes between developmental and variational features in the foreign language classroom. However, there have been concerns about the claims made by TH, such as the need for more empirical evidence and the potential for teaching structure is isolation. Some researchers have addressed their concerns, but the main merit of the teachability hypothesis is providing teachers and students with realistic knowledge of what to expect as a result of classroom instruction. The question remains whether grammar should be taught explicitly in the foreign language classroom. Psycholinguistic research provides a yardstick for understanding what can be taught when, and it depends on the conceptualization of grammar. Different representation of grammar imply different approach to its teaching. Language teaching is that is geared towards the development readiness to learners in the classroom is far more likely to support individual learners in the acquisition process. Diagnosing learner progress has been tackled from various angles, including proficiency-based measures like Common European Framework of Reference and acquisition-based diagnostic tools like Rapid Profile. Rapid Profile is a computer-assisted shorthand version of linguistic profiling based on PT, which provides a quick, valid, and reliable picture of which grammatical structure a learner can acquire next in EFL classroom. Kessler introduced the diagnostic test cycle, showing how underlying communicative tests can be used for diagnostic of the individual learner progress as well as for practicing new structure in the foreign language classroom. Based on the diagnosis as point of departure for TBLL in a pretext activity, a language learning test can be administered. Here the teacher can set the scene for task for instructed second language learning. In the task for instructed second language learning, the learner can apply their linguistic knowledge according to their current state of interlanguage development. For example, in a spot the difference test they can ask question at any stage in order to find out what is different in partner picture.
5.4 Input Output Interaction Revisit. Input, output, and interaction play a major role in language acquisition both in natural as well as in structured settings. Task-based language learning, one promising way of providing learners with opportunities for negotiation meaning is the task-based approach. 5.5 Conclusion: A role for psycholinguistics in the EVL classroom. A psycholinguistic based approach to the foreign language classroom automatically contributes to supporting each learner individually according to his or her stage of development and is therefore a good means to teach in heterogeneous or even inclusive classroom. Lessons and teaching units that have a diagnosis basis do not only increase the chance of the learners to learn the target language more efficiently and smoothly but also contribute largely to a more learner-centered approach to communicative foreign language teaching and learning.
And for a conclusion of all chapter is this chapter is a useful introduction to the basic concept of the second language acquisition based approach to English language teaching. This chapter is written in a clear accessibility style with a definition of key terms, summaries of many points, and question for reflection at the end of each chapter. That's all the presentation that we can present. We are very aware that there's many mistakes and for that we apologize. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.